One of the most pleasant conversations I had off air just occurred this morning here with my next guest from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. She is an attorney with them, Lauren Groyle. Good morning, Lauren. How are you?
Good morning, Meg. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We were just, I don't know. Oh my gosh. Maybe we crossed paths over the weekend and we just didn't know it. I was down in Milwaukee visiting my son, and that's where you reside. So I know it's a big city, but it could happen maybe, and maybe eventually it will. But so I invited you on. I saw your organization's recent press release in which, again, another victory for Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, defending school choice. Talk a little bit about what you've accomplished with this, I guess I would say, a legal battle that you endured.
Yeah, so just to give a little bit of background, in Wisconsin we have this choice program called the Special Needs Scholarship Program, or SNSP. And essentially, parents can choose to send their children to private school using the SNSP, even if their child has a disability. So the state will pay for some of the child's tuition and services so that parents with students who have disabilities can send their children to private school. And that was the case here. There were a few parents who wanted to send their children to St. Paul's Lutheran School in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, and their students had disabilities. So they were receiving services and they were part of the Special Needs Scholarship Program. And to be part of the Special Needs Scholarship Program, the school needs to submit certain forms to the DPI explaining services that the students are receiving, among other things, and they need to be signed by the parents, signed by the school, dated, all that good stuff. And the St. Paul's Lutheran School has been diligently filling out these forms, trying to do everything they can to be in compliance so that these students with disabilities can continue to receive funding. And essentially, in December of 2024, St. Paul's Lutheran was told that the form that they were using wasn't good enough. So the DPI was going to withhold over $30,000 of funding for disabled students to attend this school. And they weren't given a chance to cure. They didn't know they were doing anything wrong. And if we're being frank, really, St. Paul's Lutheran wasn't doing anything wrong. The form that DPI wants the school to be using is an optional form. It is not required by statute. And the way that St. Paul's Lutheran School was doing this, submitting the information that they needed to be submitting, was in line with the statute. So we filed a request for a hearing on this topic to try and get back this over $30,000 for St. Paul's Lutheran School. And we got into negotiations with the DPI. And the DPI said that St. Paul's Lutheran School can have all of their funding back. So we're really happy about that. It's unfortunate that it takes us having to get involved in issues like this to ensure that private schools can continue to serve students with disabilities and get the funding that they are entitled to by state law. But, we did, and we got that funding back. So I would absolutely call that a win.
Congratulations. And so in good faith, did St. Paul's attempt to work with DPI? I mean, how long was the process from when it was rejected? And then, I presume they connected with you and then you got involved. And how long was the process?
Yeah, so they did try to work with DPI first. When DPI reached out and said that the form wasn't enough and they were going to withhold all this funding, that was in December. But the school didn't receive their certification letter, which is the next step in the process, essentially saying, yep, for sure, you're not getting this funding, until I think it was the end of April, or maybe the end of March. So it was in the spring, and that's when St. Paul's Lutheran reached out to us. And we got involved at that point because DPI had made the official certification. the DPI informally told St. Paul's in December that they wouldn't be receiving the funding. And I'll also just note, kind of on that good faith point that you made there, that comment, St. Paul's, one of the students that has been receiving services and receiving this funding, actually had been approved by the DPI 3 different times prior to this fall, used in the same form, in the same way. So now all of a sudden, the DPI decides that the form's not good enough. The whole situation was just really unfortunate. And again, just a demonstration of how much there is overreach with some of these private schools and some of these programs when they're really designed to help parents and students.
You know, it seems to me that not only is DPI and the individuals, we shouldn't even talk about, or shouldn't talk about it in terms of the entity, but the individuals within the DPI, not only are they hostile towards, that's my impression, is hostile towards private schools, but they are disingenuous because they, although they claim to be educators that are interested in the education of every individual child in this state, there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach, and they should, better than anyone, educators should understand that and acknowledge that. And if indeed a child the public school option isn't a good fit for them, they should be open-minded enough to acknowledge that, wow, well, let's make sure that if they really truly cared about the individual child, they'd say, okay, well, this child will thrive at St. Paul's or at a choice school as opposed to the public school option.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I will also say that it is often a criticism of the choice program that they don't serve special needs students enough or well enough or often enough, or they don't let those students in. And first of all, just for the record, that's not true. But additionally, we see situations like this where the DPI is trying to withhold funding that these schools are entitled to for these disabled students so that they can continue to serve these students, which is really frustrating.
Well, and again, it just really highlights that it's a one-size-fits-all approach, that a very rigid mentality by those that are in, I guess I would say, this Department of Public Instruction that's ultimately should be most concerned about what is the best fit for every individual child in the state of Wisconsin.
That's exactly right. And that's why our parental choice programs are so important. The Milwaukee Parental Choice Program, the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program, and the Racine Parental Choice Program, and then, of course, what we're talking about today, the Special Needs Scholarship Program. So important to our students.
So, Lauren, I've talked a number of times with some of your colleagues at Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, and what I have found that you all have in common, and this is, I guess, why I wouldn't excel in the in your field, is that I'm an impatient person. Are you a particularly patient person? I mean, is that something you learned in law school?
I will say it's hard sometimes, especially waiting for results on some of this, but there's enough research and enough work to do. I know you talk to us often about things we have going on, so that's a little bit of a distraction. But I wouldn't say I'm a particularly patient person. I just am maybe better at hiding it than others.
All right. Okay, so that's your secret. Well, hey, man, this is a great victory. Congratulations to you, and congratulations to Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. This is one you can check off your list, and then on to, I'm sure, plenty of others. And I know how you say that, well, in the case of this particular issue, this is unfortunate that you have to go to these lengths in order to get, well, in this case, DPI to be fair about, and I guess I would say to adhere to the law when it comes to this particular situation. But it's job security for sure, for you and for everyone at Will. I mean, as I've known you, as I've been on the air, as I've known your organization, it's grown exponentially as a result of all of the, I don't know, babysitting that we have to do here in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but we're happy to help. And, anybody is free to reach out to us at any time. And we're so thankful to you, Meg, for having us on to talk about these important issues.
Well, Lauren Groyle, thanks for joining me this morning. Enjoy your day and look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks, Meg.